Before we started, even the cameras rolling, I was getting calls from reporters saying, aren't you afraid of doing a comic book movie? You know, nobody's going to do a comic book movie. There had been a couple of dumb ones before. And I just said, well, we think we have a good story. We have good characters. So while we're making the movie, you don't know when you're making a movie. All you're trying to do is make the best movie possible. The problem is that at the end of it, we were so crunched for time, and we had so many visual effects that we were never able to preview the movie. We never had an audience say, oh, we love it, or we hate it, or whatever. So when it went out, we were all scared to death. Nobody knew. And then that opening weekend was so huge. It was like, it was such a fantastic feeling, but because honestly, we didn't know.
I was straight off taking a couple of months off holiday, and I was a bit out of shape, and I was straight to the gym. One of the first things I did, I looked at the comic book, and I was like, oh my God, straight to the gym, right? This guy had guns to here, and I was like, oh. And I'd never read them, and Bryan didn't want me to read any of the comic books because he didn't want me to come with some sort of two-dimensional cartoony thing, and, which I understood. So I just remember being all at sea. I think on the opening night, I looked around, I was like, oh shit, thank God I didn't know how big this character was or how big this... I mean, they'd just blown off $1 million worth of fireworks and the whole thing, and, I just come from Australian movies where you're your own stand-in, you basically make your own sandwiches at lunch, and, and I think I was a little naive, which was good.
I didn't think it was going to be good. I mean, I thought it was going to be fine. When we wrapped, we honestly were so exhausted after that first movie. It was such a... I think we shot for 5.5 months or something. It was almost 6 months. And, there was it was in the winter of Toronto. It was like miserable. It was miserably cold. It was, we were having to reshoot everything. And it's hard to gauge what the movie's going to be like, or if it's going to be a good film, when you're filming this type of movie, because you go in and you shoot maybe a quarter of a page a day against a green screen or a blue screen or something, and you go, well, hopefully that'll cut together fine. But honestly, I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be fine, but there were so many things that reeked of this movie has problems.
We were terrified. We were terrified that we had jumped into this world and we liked it and loved it, and everyone else would think we were complete nuts, that we were geeks, that we were living on a different planet. What were you smoking?
There was, for me, with X-Men 1, I suppose about the same sort of pressure as there was 15 years ago when I first walked onto the bridge of the Enterprise. Perhaps a little bit more 15 years ago because I was less experienced in the matters of film and certainly much less confident in Hollywood. And I was more aware of Star Trek than I had been of X-Men, although I read comic books as a child and over the years actually have become quite enthusiastic. I had some unease about it, partly because I felt that one big significant franchise and one iconic character in an actor's lifetime ought to be enough. But it was the comic books initially that excited me. I enjoyed them so much, and the idea of these characters with these extraordinary mutant abilities. That, plus, finally, Bryan Singer's terrific persuasive powers.
Faith in the material, the source material, and faith in Bryan as a director and his filmmaking abilities really proved out. And I think as we progressed with the film, went from the first cut to the second cut, and really the film started to take on a life of its own. By the time we got to the music and scoring, people were really, really excited. The most amazing thing for me, though, I think, was opening day and going out to the Ziegfeld Theater in New York and seeing the lines around the block. And myself and Bryan went up and down the line and just started talking to people. They didn't know who we were. And just the reaction and the anticipation of, geez, I hope they did it right. And, of course, then we get nervous. Then as people came out of the theater and they were happy, And you always had the one core X-Men fan who brought the 8 other people to the movie. And not only was the core X-Men fan happy, but the 8 other people were happy.
I was blown away. I really was. I was extremely proud of the first movie. I thought it was the perfect blend of comic book and reality, and it made you care about these characters. And it was like that was the base of the movie, was these characters in the story.
For 3 months after I finished X-Men, I was auditioning for films and not getting some, and I got one with Ashley Judd, and I had to audition for it, of course, like everybody else. And on Monday, I turned up on set when X-Men was the 4th highest grossing movie ever, and they were real bloody happy. I wanted to renegotiate, but anyway, they were happy, and it was. And I walked out of my trailer that first day, and there was about 8 paparazzi sort of running down the street chasing me, and that's when I thought, oh, right, okay. It surprised the hell out of me, but that's when I realised that my career had changed, you know.
X-Men is going to last. It's going to endure because it's about themes that have resonated for decades and will resonate, about tolerance, about how we treat each other, how we're going to live. Those things don't go away.
I was never really given any kind of clue that, you know, if we do this again, you might be in it. Like, I didn't really know. I mean, I assumed that. Actually, I never really thought about it too much until people were like, hey, are they going to make a sequel? And I was like, you know, right after the movie came out, I was like, I don't really know. Oh, well, you should be in it because, you know, you and Rogue had this thing and you sent her off, but I think you should be nice to her again. You guys could be like a couple or whatever. So a lot of people were kind of saying that to me, but I was kind of like, oh, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. But I really had no idea. I didn't know. I mean, I was hoping and I was thinking about it and, like, you know, it could definitely work, but I was really given no kind of hint that it would happen. And then sort of while this one kind of became, you know, the script and the rumors started going around, that's when I started to hear, like, oh yeah, maybe you might be in this one. But first time around, I had no idea. It was kind of like, if it does, you know, if I'm in the second one, that'd be great. But if not, you know, it was just a good time.